So guys, in today's video, we're going to be answering a question that we get quite often around here, which is, what is modern quilting? And additionally, is modern quilting ruining our industry? Is it providing a new flavor or a new style? Or is it simply just the next big fad? Now, before we get too far into this though, we have to understand what traditional quilting is. I brought a little sample for everyone. Now, traditional quilts in general are much bigger than the average quilt today. The reason being is because they were actually used for warmth, they were actually used for beds, especially depending on what years they were. You're talking about a queen size bed. So this right here is a beautiful traditional pieced quilt. I'm not saying traditional in the sense of you hand sewed every last seam. I'm saying traditional meaning it's straight piecing, there's no curves, there's no templates required, there are no appliques, no paper piecing, just a very traditionally pieced quilt in a traditional color palette. The thing with this is, what does that actually mean? Traditional. These are old school blocks. They're ones that have been around forever, and a color palette or even some of these designs have been produced for a very, very long time. Generally speaking, browns, tans, creams. It's a beautiful quilt, but what is modern quilting? Now that we know what traditional quilting is, what does modern quilting actually mean? Let's talk about modern quilting. This right here is considered to be a modern quilt using cherrywood fabrics, which is known for being bold and bright colors and very earthy tones at the same time. What I want to do here, guys, is read a definition off the internet of what modern quilting actually is. And this would probably make everyone more confused than actually help out here. Core characteristics of a modern quilt. Bold use of color. So that's the first characteristic. Second one, uses negative space, meaning that there's large open areas on your quilt of basic or even a print, but just a large open area there. At the same time, it has to be minimalistic, using few shapes, fewer blocks, or cleaner cut lines. Fourth is improvisational. I can't say that word if I to save my life. Number 4 is a improvisational design. But that just means you don't have to rely on asymmetry all the time, but still keeping a simplistic mindset at the same time. Number 5 is graphic high impact quilting, which actually means that the long arming going into your quilt is not only functionality, but it's also adding to the design work. By doing that, you're making it more of a modern type quilt. But with all those characteristics, how do you know whether or not this quilt is a modern quilt or not a modern quilt? And also, one thing that I always get confused with personally is if this is in the category of modern, and then you have the last quilt that we just showed you, which is in the category of traditional, you kind of just have this blur or blank area of everything else. So let's go over the 5 characteristics of a modern quilt using this quilt here right next to me. But the very first one is bold use of color. Now, in this particular case, I've only got really one color. I've got solid white and solid red. Make it fall underneath the parameters of stark coloring. Number 2, the use of negative space. Now, in reality, I don't have a massive use of negative space on this. I want to make a clear distinction between dead space and negative space. Dead space is that it's there, we could have done something with it, and we decided not to do anything with it. That's kind of what dead space means. As opposed to negative space would be, instead of having these quilt blocks all the way down this corner here, I could have not put those in and maybe put in a solid red panel here. So this same color red all the way down to separate out the negative space from the actual quilt design to enhance the overall design, and will automatically make your eye focus in on the blocks as opposed to the negative space. Dead space is kind of the reverse. Dead space, everyone looks at this and says, what happened here? Let's go into the third item here, which is minimalistic. Now, if this piece right here was all red and I would have fewer quilt blocks, your eye would naturally be drawn to them because that's the only thing really engaging about the quilt. I've got one block that's repeated, and it's a very, very simple block, but simple and minimalistic are not the same thing. As opposed to the quilt I just showed you with all the little rectangles, very minimalistic, not too much going on there, but get your eye to draw into those exact colors, as opposed to this is an overwhelming pattern all the way through. Number 4 is improvisational design. Obviously here I've done one design over the whole thing and everything is symmetrical, not being used in this, but still is a pretty quilt. And number 5 is high graphic and impact quilting. I've used an edge-to-edge pattern here. It's just something to hold the whole thing together, and it makes it easier to read my pattern design underneath all the stitching, not using that high density or high impact quilting. Now here's the thing about modern quilting. I only have one of the 5 characteristics on this quilt, but lots of people out there would call this a modern quilt. Now, in my world, I call this a two-tone quilt. It's one of my personal favorites, but lots of people would say that's more of a modern take on quilting. So now what I'm gonna do next here is go over some tried and true actual modern quilts, part of a modern quilt guild here in Las Vegas as well. So let's show you some of their things that they've made. So as you can see here on some of these amazing modern quilts, some of them use circles because they're able to get away from that asymmetry. It's giving it a different look, a different vibe. It draws your eyes to it. Additionally, abstract. Abstract is normally found in modern quilting. The reason being is because it uses a massive amount of negative space to draw into your eyes to certain colors. Many modern quilts can have stripes in them that are not quite perfectly cut straight. They're more wonky or wobbly, all put together to make a piece of artwork. And generally speaking, with a lot of art quilts, especially in the modern art quilts, they're smaller quilts, anywhere between 24 inches square and 36 inches square. If you look at this one here, you see all the amazing quilt work that has been put into this. High density quilting put into this quilt to ensure that you look at each element of the quilt as it sits. The quilt doesn't have much on it, but it draws your eye directly to it. You can use a basic shape or a basic element to tell the full story. You can do so much with just a minimalistic type quilt. So now that we've been able to look at some of these amazing modern quilts, let's move on to the next thing. As you guys can tell, it is really hard to get a clear definition of what a modern quilt actually is, because there's so many elements to modern quilting that apply to other types of quilts and also other design styles, right? It's really when you combine multiple layers that kind of transitions from modern to a traditional quilt, or just a quilt in general. Modern quilting really isn't modern anymore. It was the early 2000s when modern quilting became an official term in our industry. So that was 25 years ago. With that being said, how long can something stay modern? It's really just a name to identify what kind of quilter you are. And it also is a term to kind of identify when you started a new journey in your life. From just traditional piecing to modern piecing to curved piecing, they're all terms to help us identify kind of what we're working on and to get a little bit of lingo into the industry. Something that is truly modern is the next thing you're about to see. So now something that is truly modern is Minky. This is a product that over the years has gotten softer, better, and being used way more in our industry. It was only 10 years ago when this product was deemed as an apparel-only fabric. And now you're seeing on the backs of quilts, you're seeing it added to the front of quilts. But additionally, as technology advances, so does the products that come with them. Over on this side, can we do a pan over to this side? Over on this side here, it looks the same, feels the same, but this is now Quilting Cuddle. It is designed to make quilts. Not only the back of your quilt, but also the front of your quilt. It's truly a modern product. Some people are gonna say, what does that look like? Let's show you some of the prints real quick. So Quilting Cuddle, like I said, is a brand new product. It is printed on Minky that is thinner. That way it's easier to sew through your sewing machine, and it's a little bit less slippery due to some of those characteristics of it. This is truly a modern product. It came out in 2025, but the name did not come with a modern product. This is not going to be called modern quilting unless they fall into those 5 characteristics, which again, guys, is just to define what it is that you're making. If you love the look and you don't want to be called a modern quilter, it's totally okay. Or if you're a traditional piece quilter and love all the bright and fantastic bold colors that we have, and you want to incorporate those into traditional piecing, go for it. This industry is so amazing because each person gets to express themselves differently. All in all, do I think that modern quilting is like ruining our industry, or if there's a battle between modern quilters and traditional quilters? No, I don't believe that. I simply believe that there are ways to identify like-minded people. If you love those abstract art type quilts, you're probably gonna wanna be in the abstract art type quilt group. Birds of a feather flock together. And so when you can gather up these quilters and put them all into the same group, it's easier to talk about the industry, easier to explain what you're doing, and additionally, you're around like-minded people who appreciate that portion of the craft. But all in all, guys, it's a way that the community can continue to progress. And with that, guys, if you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and don't be afraid to share it with your friends. And as always, guys, down in the description below is a link to check out SewYaQuilting.com, so that if you've seen any of this amazing fabric here that you love and want to grab some, check out SewYaQuilting.com and pick yourself up some. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you on the next one.